want to tell you a little bit about what we can do after the marches and beyond social media, and that is BDS. So BDS stands for Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions, and it's a call from Palestinian civil society, so Palestinian trade unions, associations, all the groups that make up a society got together in Palestine in 2005 to issue this call for the international community, which is us here, to boycott and divest from and sanction Israel. The BDS call is modeled off the South African anti-apartheid movement, and Palestinians are calling us to boycott, divest, and sanction Israel until Israel complies with international law by meeting 3 demands. Those demands are, number 1, ending the occupation and dismantling the illegal apartheid wall. Number 2, full equality for Palestinian citizens of Israel. And number 3, the right of return for Palestinian refugees. There are millions of Palestinian refugees who are not allowed to return to their homes. 2.2 million of them are getting bombed in Gaza right now. So these are the demands of the BDS call, and you can think of it like a picket line. For those of us who are familiar with the labor movement, we would never cross a picket line if workers were out on strike. Shout out to the Portland teachers who are about to go on strike. So if workers were on strike at a business, we wouldn't shop there until their demands were met. And you can think of BDS kind of the same way. You might think this sounds pretty straightforward and uncontroversial, but we know that's never how it is when it comes to Palestine. There are currently 38 states with laws that censor or prohibit BDS in some way. Thankfully, Oregon is not yet one of them, but we have to make sure it stays that way. And that is why it is so important that we never let them stop hearing from us. We let them know that a movement for free Palestine not only exists in Oregon, but it is hundreds of thousands of people strong, and it is going to grow every day. So BDS is really important because it helps us take that step from just being sympathetic with the Palestinians to actually taking action, because there is something more that you can do about it, and it's ending the complicity of our government and our institutions right here at home. The United States gives Israel nearly $4 billion a year in military funding, no strings attached. And that's not including the $14 billion in emergency funding that Biden is about to give them right now. People say that the BDS movement singles out Israel. Yes, because it's a demand that comes from Palestinians to stop Israel from oppressing them. But also, the United States singles out Israel by giving them $4 billion a year in military funding every year and unquestioning support as they commit horrific atrocities. And one way we can end this is to engage in BDS to end this funding. So, our representative here, Earl Blumenauer, actually signed on in 2021 to Betty McCollum's legislation called No Way to Treat a Child, which would restrict some funding to Israel based on human rights violations. So it makes no sense why he wouldn't support something as uncontroversial as a ceasefire. He knows that this is wrong, but he needs to hear from you all that you elected him. He represents us. And we do not want him to use our money to support ethnic cleansing in Palestine. Another action you can take right now is to pass a resolution in your union or in your church or in your university or at your school to divest from Israel. Unions have investments in companies that profit from Israeli violence. So do churches, so do universities. Right now is the time to end those investments or relationships. Right here in the Pacific Northwest, we have Boeing, who's sending bombs and missiles to Israel. And we know we're not going to get Boeing to stop making bombs, right? That's what they do. But we can end their relationships with institutions around here. PSU is an example of this. They have a program that recruits PSU students into working for Boeing, making bombs. So we can push them to cut those ties. We won that one. We won. won that campaign. Someone said G4S, we won that campaign. Our state pension fund, where all the public school teachers and other state employees, in Oregon have their retirement funds, is currently invested in a firm that owns NSO, which is an Israeli spyware company whose spyware has been used to facilitate horrific human rights abuses worldwide and is currently being used to help the IDF surveil and massacre Palestinians. Last year, the Oregon Education Association, the Oregon AFL-CIO, and Oregon AFSCME, which collectively represents hundreds of thousands of workers here in Oregon, they all passed resolutions condemning this investment and urging the state to adopt a human rights screen for investments. But so far, they've said they won't do it. So now is the time to push our state legislators to divest from NSO and let them know that we do not want our retirement funds invested in Israeli spyware. So these are all actions that we can take in our workplaces or schools. My own union at Park Rose School District passed a resolution in 2021 in support of BDS in Palestine. Many other teachers' unions did the same thing that year at a time when Israel was also bombing Gaza. Surprise, surprise. Dock workers in San Francisco in the past have taken direct action by refusing to unload Israeli ships. Dock workers in Italy in 2021 refused to load weapons onto a ship that was headed to Israel. The time is now for that kind of action and to end complicity. So, making my poor husband hold up this sign this whole time, I'm going to tell you about some links that you can go to. There is a link in this link tree. For those who can't see it, it is linktree/PDX Palestine. That's linktr.ee/PDX Palestine. There will be a link in here to contact your members of Congress and urge them to support a ceasefire. There's a link to contact the Oregon Investment Council about divesting from the Israeli spyware company NSO. And then there's also a link to 2 different databases where you can find companies that are complicit in Israeli human rights violations. One of them has a tool where you can look up your specific investment or retirement fund to see where you might be invested in. There's also a link to the BDS movement website where you can find more information on BDS campaigns, how to plan out a campaign, how to get involved. And then there's one more link, which is to an event that's happening tomorrow. It's a film screening of the film Gaza Fights for Freedom, which is about the Great March of Return in 2018, as some other speakers have talked about. The film screening is tomorrow at the Clinton Street Theater at 1 p.m. It's free. There will be suggested donations to relief funds at the door. So links to all that is in this link tree. Take a picture of the sign. The last thing I want to say is that I am about 4 months pregnant right now with a baby girl. And I've done Palestine work for a while, but the reality of becoming a new mother has made me see this through a whole new lens. The children and the babies that are getting massacred or being orphaned, or their grieving parents are holding their body parts in bags, and our government is funding it. I know one thing for sure.